All right, welcome into the half. My name is Aaron Montgomery. This is Eric Campbell. Eric, how are you doing, sir?
Doing all right, doing all right. A little tired after after a kind of a marathon visit out to Texas, but doing okay. A lot of driving.
Yeah, a lot of driving. Well, glad you made it home safely. And
My
yeah,
pleasure.
how long of a drive was it?
It's only about 10 hours, a little over, but I decided that with my frequent traveling points that I have from all the trade show stuff I've done, that I stayed over in Amarillo on points, which was a nice way to do it. Break it up into two sections, and I just worked.
Yeah,
Hey, in a time when we now know we can all work from anywhere, doing some work at the hotel was a nicer way to spend the day than driving into the sunset all the way home.
yeah, exactly. All
I
right.
was like,
So,
no, thank you.
hello, Richard. Appreciate you tuning in. And
Yes,
Justin, hello. Thanks for being here.
which got to meet Justin out of Fort Worth. That was cool. I'll be talking about that also more on my show later today. I'm going to talk all about the adventures. But great to see
Excellent.
Justin.
Hey, Sheila. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, so we got everybody checking in. Appreciate that.
Yes.
So we are here, and Sheila Ryan,
Sheila,
and Sheila Wooten and Sheila Ryan. So Sheila
both in
Wooten
today.
before, and then we've got Sheila Ryan here. So, and then speaking of the embroidery nerds, here's Jeff
Yes,
Fuller,
Jeff, who I got
Jeff
to
and
share the
Justin. The
stage with. That was cool. Jeff and I got to do a panel for with Madeira, USA for Port Worth. So it was really cool. We had a great panel, and Jeff did awesome.
awesome,
So
great.
yeah,
And Melanie, we're just here living the dream, right? We're hanging out,
catching up.
and Bill, it is that time already that the half
Yes,
is upon us. So
yes, it is time for the half. It is time to catch up finally.
and hello, Todd. Thanks for tuning in.
Yo.
Um, so Eric, what is going on?
Aside from just being kind of like shell shocked at all the stuff from the last week, yeah, I don't know yet. I'll say this: a whole lot of catching up is what's going on after being on the road for a week. For me, it's a lot of that. I mean, I know everybody's been dealing with a lot, so I'm not. I have nothing special that I'm dealing with, just a lot of it all at once.
Yeah, yeah, that's all right. That's perfectly fine, perfectly fine. So let's see here. Walker Woods Creations. Hello, thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in.
Feel
Appreciate you
free to
being
let
here.
us know your name if you'd like us to actually use your name and not the business name. I always ask because I will not remember from one time to the next. That is my fault.
Nice.
Sometimes I remember people's names from their businesses, but boy, not always, folks.
Yep. All right. So we've got Mike checking in. Hello, Mike. Thanks for
Yes.
being here.
Replicator number one, Mike Muldowney's in.
And then
Gary Lee, also the embroidery nerd. And by the way, we had, speaking of live episodes, I got to join for the last live that they did from Fort Worth with the embroidery nerds, and we went over 2 hours. It was like almost 2.5 hours of live content. If you go over to the embroidery nerd channel, you want to see me and all the nerds together nerding it up. Well, we did plenty of that from Fort Worth. So yeah,
nice, nice.
lots of it.
And Walker Woods is Letty.
Letty, of
Yeah,
course. Oh my
yeah.
God, Letty, I'm so sorry. Letty's awesome. So I didn't see her from her YouTube connection. Letty. So I got to meet Letty out at Fort Worth as well, and see she has an awesome little kind of fan art jacket that combines both the reciprocator logo that she put together, Sippy, the little character, and and had nerd glasses on from the embroidery nerd. And we all signed it.
That's
Letty was
so cool.
awesome. So
Wow.
Letty, I'm so sorry I forgot. Like I said, I am a little out of it today. I'm not going to pretend. I stayed up till about 2 a.m. last night answering, and I drove home yesterday, and like literally about 2 a.m. I guess this morning, answering emails and questions and stuff. I had so much feedback and so many people contacting me after these shows. So after the events of Texas, it was just like I have an incredible stream and my inbox is still full. I had to just finally go to bed. I
So,
set
yeah,
up the shows for today and just went to bed. I finally couldn't do any more.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
if you haven't
Hey,
heard from
Christine.
me, you will.
Okay, sounds good. So stay tuned, everybody. Christine, hello. Thanks for being here. Happy
Oh,
Friday to you.
awesome. Yeah, I get to
And
hang out with Christine a
Ramona, good
lot.
morning. And Dean, good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in. Um, Christine says, so cool to get to meet all the nerds in Fort Worth. Actually, so cool to meet everyone. So many friends in the computer that I met in real life. So
Yes,
there you go.
indeed. And it was cool. Yeah, Christine, I got to go with her. We sat in on Jay Basal's class. So that was really cool too. Aside from just getting to hang out and talk and having great conversations, got to do some education ourselves too. So it was cool.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, guys. Well, what questions do you all have for Eric and I? And I got a y'all in there, so you still felt that Texas vibe. So there. So let's see here. Oh, we do have Marianne checking in from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Happy to have Marianne in.
Yep. And Jerry agrees with Christine. So there we go.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was like I said, a lot of people getting together. It was cool to see the whole Embroidery Nerd crew, and like Justin Armenta, who we have in all the time. I have known him since we were like online. We have been blogging and talking about blogs for many, many years. I walked up to him at the show, and he's like, "Hey, it's Eric," and we walked up and just started talking as if we had been hanging out forever. I'd never met him before. So we just like walked right into the show and just started talking like it was nothing. But I mean, you kind of have that after you've been talking to people so long online.
I was going to say, I think that was a similar experience for you and I that time in Long Beach. We'd never met each other. Well, I guess we had met each other personally, face to face once before. Never mind. So skip that. Nothing like that.
Super brief though. No, but it was like it was very much like just, oh, hey, let's hang out. Yeah, we do this already. this is already what we do. And then the same thing, hang out with. And I mean, I had met Matt, of course, who was there as well from the Embroidery Nerd, and Jeff before, but I hadn't met Justin, and I hadn't seen Jerry Lee in forever. So it was cool to just kind of see everybody together. And then honestly, while all the worlds clashing, it was pretty cool. It was just like everybody. All these different people from all different kind of groups online. It was cool.
Yeah. So Christine says Jay Basil's class were amazing. I learned so much about LinkedIn. That's awesome. Yeah. In fact, Jay is going to be doing our success group membership training about LinkedIn for us here upcoming before the end of the year. So I'm in touch with Jay on that. So that's going to be awesome. All right. So Christine says, I can also identify with Eric saying he's still catching up from all the stuff that comes from meeting and talking at the show. I've been emailing and messaging people all week. So, and then Dean said, and everything is just down yonder.
I will say this. We heard an actual earnest howdy that happened. There was a couple of howdies that really happened. But everybody was super nice in Fort Worth. And I'll say I'm probably still, returning to my normal voice. My dad, if you guys don't know, is from kind of the border of Texas and New Mexico, a little further south than here, and definitely further toward Texas. And by the time I got done with a full week of Texas, I was definitely leaning into the drawl pretty hard. You're going to hear a lot of round vowels out of me in the next couple of days while I try and pull my dad's accent back out, because I will fully admit, like, okay, my mom's from Wisconsin, my dad's from like New Mexico and the Texas border. I can get a pretty weird accent depending on where you stick me in this country. I'll pick up parts of that no matter where I go. And I most definitely was coming back with a whole lot of Texas. There's a lot of mams on the way home, let me tell you.
Nice. Yeah.
Mams and round vowels.
It's easy to go there because it's just so soothing and comforting. You know, it just feels so right. You know, everybody's, like you said, so nice there in Fort Worth. So
well, with so much family who sounds like that, it was just like, admittedly, I will fully admit to having dropped my Albuquerque accent in college, because there is one. Trust me, go look it up. Go look up like Leanne. There's a character called Leanne who did a bunch of ads, or it's like stuff Albuquerqueans say. Look up that stuff. Burqueños is what you said. Stuff Burqueños say. That is all true. and I sounded more like that when I was a kid a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Definitely. All right. Takes a while to recover from the shows, Jeff said. Yep. All right, Eric. Well, let's get into our first question of the day. Mike has for us here: decorated apparel e-commerce, DIY through WordPress WooCommerce versus prepackaged from Deco Network, Inksoft, etc. Subtext: I've only found 3 of the big 7 that function in Canada. Thoughts?
This is a huge, tough question. Do you want to hit some of this first, or do you want me to do it? Because I've got history here.
Well, I will.
I think we both have some history.
Yeah, I think we both have some history here. So there's let's see here. Let me start by saying this, Eric. I think that each different package is going to work differently depending on what you're trying to do with it. So if you're trying to have, people be able to decorate on the website and add text and do different things and have some templates and whatnot, a tool like a Deco Network and Inksoft, something like that. If you're trying to build lots of different stores, for example, Inksoft's great for that. you've got lots of different things that you can do with each and every one of them. At the end of the day, I personally, and if it is just kind of a straight e-commerce store, I'm typically more of a fan of a e-commerce system. Now, WooCommerce might not be where I would head. I do a lot of stuff with WordPress and have WordPress sites, Two Regular Guys is a WordPress site and all that other stuff. And so I know there's a lot you can do with WordPress and WooCommerce, but I think for me, if it was my choice, I would actually look at Shopify. I think Shopify is the 800-pound gorilla for a reason. And there's always an app for it. There's lots of people that design in it. A good friend of mine, and I think you know him as well, Eric, Vic from I Personalize.
Yeah, of course.
Big proponent of Shopify and building on that platform and being able to, you can do a lot more with Shopify than you probably realize. So that's my first take, Eric, and I know you probably have a little different take. So the floor is yours.
A lot, yeah. If you guys don't know, I'm going to go ahead and tell you immediately. If you don't know ahead of time, I worked for a couple of years at Deco Network, so I've been on the back end of these things pretty hard. And honestly, I've had a lot of discussions with people all over that side of the industry and worked in the e-commerce kind of area. What I'm going to tell you is this: Aaron kind of hit the nail on the head. There's a vast difference between running a pre-decorated apparel brand and running a custom decoration shop online. It's a vast difference. And the truth of the matter is, the WordPress, WooCommerce, whatever. I mean, hey, Shopify, I don't think the online design stuff is there in that space the way it's going to be in the rest of it. And if you needed to do things like shop management, if you needed to do order management, if you needed to do, and here's the other thing too, if it's going to have to handle quoting or anything that's going to deal with, apparel specific terminology, apparel specific stuff, then those packages are going to make the most sense. And we've got a follow-up comment here from Mike saying, customer web stores is a major factor. Sorry, I should have said that. You can totally run customer web stores because they're often pre-decorated. You can run those off of anything. And I mean anything. I hate to say it. Any of the major solutions. I've run them on WooCommerce before. I've run them in other templates. Hell, I ran them in Magento. I've run them, any e-commerce templated setup that you can imagine. There's a likelihood I've run at least some company store in it because I've been doing this so long. They are more like individual objects, like any other sales object you have. As long as you can get a way to preview different combinations, because that's a big deal, color and size combinations, and make sure that it makes sense for apparel. If you can get all of the combinations in and have the proper imagery that you need for apparel, you're fine. Most of it will be fine anywhere. And I've done, like I said, I actually like WooCommerce a lot. I run some pretty big stuff on WooCommerce, but I'm also currently not doing apparel that way. But for company stores, I've had no problem with it. But Shopify, once again, Aaron's right. There's a reason why a lot of people do Shopify. I would select one of the two based on how much you like also, percentages, because that's part of the thing is WooCommerce. If you're running it yourself, is not taking any percentages, whereas Shopify is. So you got to look at the financials on it, but it may not matter to you depending on how you're setting stuff up. Plus, with those kind of templated stores, Shopify, whatever else, it's not quite the same as the way the affiliate style stores work in the big major packages. Those tend to work in a way where you have all of the same back end, and you just have different front ends. They're all feeding into one back end order management system, which is not quite how you get out of like WooCommerce. WooCommerce, you have separate stores. They run like separate sites. They're not going to be feeding into one back end the same way. So it's about, how do you want to process orders? How much streamlining do you want to do? What do you want to do with your workflow? And then very much, if you're going online design, if you're doing customization and any part of that is embroidered text or embroidery, then you really should probably look at something that has that, because you're not going to be able to do live previews of your fonts in any other way aside from just putting together a TrueType lookalike font or making your own and having that be part of what you do. And not TrueType, but you know what I mean? TrueType, OpenType, whatever. You're going to end up with a web font version of your embroidery font. It won't look like a direct preview. So it really has to do a lot with how much customization you're going to do and how apparel specific and what other heavy lifting you expect it to do. If you're already running your shop on other management software and stuff, then it'll be about integration. I know that makes it more complicated, not less. but it absolutely has to do with, how much decoration do I want to do online? Am I going to have live design and preview? Am I going to have live customization? And where do I want my, my eventual end result to end up? Where do I want my workflow to go, and what do I want it to do? I still am a fairly big proponent of the industry specific solutions right now, but I had a lot of discussion with people over this last week about how that stuff works, and it's not. I couldn't give you one brand and say this brand has everything you need. I would literally have to sit there and go, let me talk about your shops and your mix,
Yeah,
and decide which one is the closest. And
sure,
even then, I would be like, here are the drawbacks of each one of these products, because
sure,
I know them
sure,
pretty well.
sure. Now, with Mike's comment about custom web stores is a major factor.
Yeah,
That right there though would make me think, okay, well, to make this quick and easy, and I think the thing that people have, the reasons that people have told me that they've gone with a setup like a Deco Network or an Inksoft or something like that is for that ease of just, and like Eric said,
data.
you just, you're basically just kind of changing the front end. It's still all just pumping into one place, which again makes it a little bit easier to manage. And, it doesn't matter. Our friend, Ali Banholzer, and I don't know what the exact number is right now today, but if I recall, not too long ago, she said she had something close to like 87 different web stores.
I could actually talk to her about it. 109.
109. There you go.
109 was the last number I've heard from her.
Yeah. And she uses Inksoft, so, it just depending on what that ultimate experience is. I worked with a company and we had used Deco Network. I'm not a huge fan. It wasn't the most intuitive, and but the things that we were doing, it wasn't necessarily specifically made for it. I think one of the biggest challenges for me with all of these tools is that none of them think about sublimation. Period.
Yeah,
they just don't. And there are challenges to sublimation that, so even like a Deco where they definitely, I would say personally from my experience, catered a little bit more to people that were embroiderers, but definitely also screen printers and whatnot. Whereas you got an Inksoft who's definitely screen, maybe a little direct to garment, but definitely screen heavy. Printavo the same way, screen heavy.
And also Printavo more like production management heavy, way light on stores.
Correct. Yeah. Now they've worked on that with their merch program that they do. But yeah, so sublimation definitely is just an area that nobody's really kind of, I don't know, for whatever reason they don't they do that. Jeff says, I feel special when I do sublimation, not the good kind of special. Anyhow.
Yeah, I've been combining sublimation with embroidery for a really long time too, and I kind of have that same feeling that it's a little hard. And I'll say this is the absolute truth with every one of the platforms. And I know somebody's gonna come for me on this, but okay, from my experiences in the back end, each one of them was designed to a specific end and started in one place that they are not anymore.
Yes.
And as they try and become everything to everyone, there are steps to get lost along the way. And I don't think you can avoid that. I think they probably are doing the best they can in each instance. From what I see, they're all doing, and they're also trying to respond to all these users. But as users come in and see the 5 things they like and the 5 things they didn't get, if every user comes in with a feature request, it becomes pretty thorny pretty quick.
Exactly.
But I will say, speaking specifically about like Deco and Inksoft, and part of what they really do that makes it a big deal, it's what Aaron said. They have the catalog information already imported. So if you are using major decor or major garment manufacturers, the chances are building a site for you is, I'm selecting these 5 items, I'm uploading a couple of header images, and then I'm dropping a decoration on automatically with the backend designer, even if I'm not allowing online design, and they're very fast. Inksoft is like that, Deco Network is like that, and because a lot of us are buying like SNS and Sanmar and Alpha Broder, the chances are we're going to be able to drop our 5 items on and then go. And I'll say, like, I know Deco's got the Canada, like it has the Canada versions of those catalogs as well. The thing is that also comes with the fact that the updates still take two stages to go through. We have to get updates from, if you were on the back end, I say we because I still remember doing this stuff. We have to get our vendor partners have to give us the information, then we have to bring it in and make it work. And things like the imagery that comes through, if we don't get good imagery from the people, it's not like each one of these companies can afford to do full photography for each one of these things. So they're really dependent on what the manufacturers or the vendors, distributors will give us as far as imagery. So it does mean there's still a lot going on there. But if you want to just say, talk to a customer in the morning, and by evening, you're going to put their logo in the banner, change a couple names, drop an image on 5 items, and then send them a link, those sites really do cater to that.
Yeah.
And that's
exactly
how they're being used. Like Allie's doing the same thing with Inksoft. No, she's putting more into it than that, but same kind of thing. You can build a site very quickly.
Exactly. And Dean says most of us want something easy so we can put more effort into the shop. Absolutely. So, and that's where an Inksoft or a Deco or some of these things come into play. They're very easy, but when you start thinking about kind of e-commerce in general, though, it's hard to go away from like I said, there's a reason that Shopify is the big player out there and continuing to grow. I mean, if you followed their stock at all, it's insane how much value they have, and there's a reason for that.
It just depends on how much you hate data entry, because I mean that's a lot of it. A lot of what we do in e-commerce is I have to upload these images and generate these images, and then I have to do my descriptions and my catalog information. And if that is something you're good with and you know what you're working with and you're being good about your assets and mocking up garments or taking actual photos is cool or what you want to do, honestly, and here's the thing, if you're actually decorating and you want to use real photos, which I kind of recommend if you're doing preprint, I mean, that's always a good option, then it's a lot less, the consideration for using, Inksoft or Deco or any of those is less.
Yep.
And I would say I wouldn't use those. If I'm doing like a streetwear line or something cool, the concept of using the generic stock images with a digitally placed overlay, I'm not doing that. Super Dry doesn't do that. Why would I be doing that if I'm starting a brand? Because then brand awareness is going to be in the tank.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm doing 15 high schools in the next month, makes sense. I'm not going to. The booster clubs aren't all getting their own action shots where I line everybody up on the 50-yard line and take shots of all the most attractive people at school. Like we're not. That's not what we're doing. It's not a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's make sure we got all the comments here, Eric, and we'll keep going. David said we had 2 clients bring us home cooked barbecue to the booth in Fort Worth. He says, I love Texas. So.
Texas was, I got to say, Texas was pretty baller, folks. It was nice.
Cheryl said to Jeff, I'm ready to go again. David said from his experience, not a lot of clients actually use those website, the designer type websites. They will custom ink you and still ask you to design something.
Yeah, I've written about this several times, believe it or not. The kind of the downfall of design sites is that people don't want to be designers, and especially let's say they screw around with designing for a while, and pardon me for saying it that way, but that's how they're going to feel, and then something doesn't go well, or they look at it and don't like it and they're tired of playing with it. They just want the expert to handle it.
Yeah.
The custom design stuff I find less appealing than the other parts of it, and that's the only thing that is very, very good is when you have embroidery and they have your embroidered fonts and you can get live previews. That is super useful, especially in places where that actually seeing it in thread makes a big difference to the customer expectations.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. And also being able to do mock-ups immediately from your embroidered file, that's great. So for embroiderers, I see especially why they want to do it, because we have an extra step for all of our mock-ups.
Yep. Makes sense. And then Yusta, hello. Thanks for checking in. And Ramona says, my WooCom was not a positive experience. After the first year, they kept pausing my account for better security needs at money for each security upgrade. So
I haven't had that experience recently. In the last year and a half or so, I've been running a big WooCommerce site. But yeah, I mean, I will say this. Whereas I think Shopify has a little bit more included in the front end, you find you buy a lot of plugins.
Yes. You will feel apt to death at a certain point, but
for sure.
But it's ultimately though the thing is it becomes cheaper to just get an app than it is to have it custom designed. So there's definitely
cheap on the lead end, but when you build your full site out with all the function you want, you will be buying. Let's just put it this way. If you get a stock WooCommerce site, you will buy an app or a plugin. You will. I'll be shocked if you don't.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think we got this one from Dean. So there's a big learning curve to all of them. Jeff says, seems like something you could hire a 16-year-old and it would go a lot faster than doing it yourself.
I have been present for this strategy before, and the hey, isn't there a kid who could do that down at the school? Has bought some people more trouble than they expect.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to have a pretty detail-oriented kid from the school. I'm just going to say that because I have come in to help someone rehab sites that were done poorly by the kid from school, because there is a learning curve, especially honestly, like the Insofts and Decos of the world have a lot of industry-specific stuff in the back end that needs to be correct.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about, your website is an extension of your brand, of your personality. And so somebody that has no idea about your company trying to make your website, I'm actually in the process of having my website redone right now. And, it's been a long process because it's really important to me that they understand what it is that our personality is, what it is that our success group is all about. So we've gone back and forth. They kind of came in, they sent me this mock-up, and they were thinking that I was just gonna be like, oh, cool, great. And it looks fantastic, but it doesn't tell the story that I want them to tell. I said, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. They basically just took my current website, copied all the content, and made it look pretty. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm paying you guys for. So there's something to be said about working with a professional for sure. So
hey, you have a kid who takes good pictures though. That is actually pretty hard. That's the thing that causes all the slowdown is setting up images. If you have a kid who can put garments on either people or on mannequins and get good pictures out of them, that's actually pretty good. That can be good. I've had that before where somebody did that and it turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
The data entry side, boy, they do have to really mean it.
Yep. Yep. And then Just Ship said, look into Big Cartel. Okay. I'm not familiar with that at all, actually. So.
Yep.
Cool. And then Mike says, thanks for the insight, guys. The 3-click custom website option sounds great when you have a lot of stores to offset that monthly cost, but just getting into that space with only a handful, it's hard to swallow that sign-up fee and big monthly. Yeah, it is an investment. Yeah, it is definitely an investment. And Mike said, Shopify couldn't find the way to do I'm the one vendor with multiple custom storefront solution. And that might be a challenge because, with Shopify, you are, like you were talking about, Eric, you're going to have separate, basically, they're all just going to be separate stores altogether. Yep. So, yes, where you're trying to do multiple stores, a tool like an Inksoft or a Deco or even a Printavo merch, something like that might be the way to go. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, I was just laughing. I like that. Adam takes all my pictures. Those are pretty good too, man. Give Adam the pat on the back. Your site looks good. So that was nice.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Jamie says, hey, Eric Campbell, we do all our own website stuff, pictures and data entry.
Oh yeah. I definitely did all the pictures for our sites. But I'm picky.
Yeah. We are thinking about OMG for all of our schools.
Order My Gear.
There you go.
Thank you. I am not a huge fan of Order My Gear. I'm not saying don't go use them. Go check them out. Check out everybody. And also, I haven't been in this side of it for a minute. Like I have not looked at Order My Gear for a minute. But that was one of those things where everybody thought it was automatic, but they had people on the back end actually setting things up for you, and there was delay times. Now that is from some time ago. Yeah. So you need to go check out now. Ask, hey, how about this? Ask them about their lead times. That's fair to ask any vendor. You could ask me if I was selling the same product. Ask about their lead times for setup, because that's the complaint that I got from folks on Order My Gear, is that they took longer for setup than you would like.
And when you go and you start digging into Order My Gear, so for me, when I'm looking at some of this stuff, I like to go read the deep details. I want to read their policies. I want to read what where the fees are coming from, what the fees are all about, and that kind of thing. And when you start reading about Order My Gear, and this is just my own personal opinion, so this is not true fact. This is just what I read from what I was researching, is that ultimately Order My Gear makes money as a credit card transaction processor. Mm-hmm. And, so when you start looking at their fee structure and stuff like that, it's all about them charging, they basically want you to run your credit cards through them. So, that was kind of, I don't know, and not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It just, you have to understand where it is that they're coming from and what their intentions are. How do they make money? Therefore, now you can figure out how you're going to be charged and what works for you. So, anyhow, that's just a thought there. All right, let's see what other comments we got here that we can. There we go. Thank you. You were blocking there. Thank you.
Yeah, we had some bad comments that I blocked out. So thank you guys for that. We're going just a tiny bit long, but we started a little bit late. So we're going to finish up a couple comments and then we'll get done.
Yep, definitely. Okay. So,
yeah, Jamie was a little confused with running Deco Network. I'll say I had people who love each of these platforms and hate each of these platforms. And it's hard for me to say. I had a good time running Deco because I was running Deco sites with embroidery, and once I had it set up, it was easy to replace. I had other people who loved Inksoft. I didn't like Inksoft in the original, but I mean, they've since released a new platform. I think you have to go get a taste for everything. That's just the truth. You have to go out and get all the demos that you can and have people walk through stuff to find out what fits for you. Some people find Deco confusing. Some people, and I'll say some people don't love doing definitely don't love doing WooCommerce sites because I've heard that before, WooCommerce and Shopify. It depends. And that's why there are also so many services to help people do these things too.
Yeah.
And hence, like we were talking about before, I personalize. It's Vic. He helps people get stuff set up. He's got his own framework, plus it works with Shopify. Yep. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to get this done for sure.
Yeah.
And I will briefly just say with Mike, this is something I always look for. Yeah, order my gear you like. Well, there's no monthly, but they take a piece of every order. They're going to get paid. No matter how they're going to get paid. I will say that's why I've actually gone with Woo before, just because there isn't a percentage process. Other than that, you know what I mean? It really just depends on where they're getting paid and what you're happy with.
Totally. Yep. All right, you guys. Well, Eric, let's finish it out.
I'm scared of getting cut off again.